Thank you. Thank you. And Drew, would you please lead us in the pledge? Stand for the pledge, please.
Stand for the pledge.
Right hand over your heart.
Thank you.
Ready, begin.
Thank you for those with the voices that carry. We have no report out of closed session this evening. And I'd like a motion, please, to adopt our agenda.
Second.
Jim Carroll, is there any changes or additions to the agenda?
No.
All in favor of the student vote on the agenda as presented?
Yes.
Thank you. Board members, all in favor of the agenda?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. We have no recognitions this evening. We do have now public comment on non-agenda items. I don't have any cards submitted at this point. Okay. Sure. A hearing? There's a public hearing that's not until after this. It's a public meeting that starts at 6.
Hello. I just want to thank you for having finals this week. All of my kids' stuff has been canceled because they're all too stressed out for finals. So that's awesome. Thank you. With that, I wanted to address a couple things that are going on, in particular the posted and published board core values and strategic goals. They're on the website. And there's a couple that I find really interesting given the current events that have transpired in the last week or so with a potential litigation coming up, I understand. I find that it possibly could be very well appropriate and deserving. You know, you guys have values that you all sat on the board and approved. Some of the values are things called transparency, courtesy, commitment and responsibility. You talk about courtesy, saying that we will treat everyone with dignity and respect, seeking to understand each point of view without assumptions. I don't understand how we can be in a litigation potentially if you're trying to understand somebody else's point of view. For the district to use taxpayer funds, potentially abusing taxpayer funds to fight something that is a mere conversation potentially. A lot of information has been shared as far as some of the ideas around this litigation through public record requests. You guys are all in violation of anything and everything that you've talked about anybody else on the board doing. Emails between board members and superintendents that are only going back and forth, forwarding of emails from personal emails back and forth. I mean, is that board policy? I don't think so. I mean, I think that's against board policy. Certainly, it's against board policy to have an agent harass the community on your behalf, documented. School culture talks about how each student will strengthen the connections to the school community and the world by engaging in activities that build skills and responsibility. What I find interesting about that comment is that nowhere in there does it say anything about our school administration and what their responsibility is to our students and what kind of activities they're going to engage in and what commitment you're making to that. Not through our LCAP as a whole, but you as individuals. Where is your ethics? Where does it lie? It's really unfortunate this is where it's come from. It's really unfortunate that you're going to be using taxpayer funds potentially to defend yourself against something that it's publicly demonstrated that you're bullying other board members.
Yes, just identify yourself, please. Didn't
Ann
turn in a card.
Moriarty. Sorry I'm late. I really don't have time for this. Like a lot of people, I think we're all really busy, especially with finals coming up this week. It's extremely stressful to have finals this week. Even with the calendar change, I think it was much better having finals the way it was before. My kids have missed out on so many things this last couple of weeks because of projects and homework and things due. It's the first time ever they couldn't go to each other's music programs. So that's something you might want to consider. Also, I really don't think it's ever too late to redeem yourselves, say something's a bad decision, say maybe we need to go back, because this lawsuit is ridiculous. And I agree with Sherry, because I've read a bunch of the emails too. And there was one that was especially offensive from Valoria to Peggy, commenting on a parent who had emailed Valoria that had no reason going to you, and you guys were being really catty like school kids over it. It was shocking. And it wasn't just yours. There's a bunch from teachers. I mean, it's just shocking the way people email back and forth and talk about each other. And we know from those emails as well that there was a long trail of coming down on D and what we're going to do about D. And then finally, I know somebody who can get her emails. So it was like some kind of setup or something. So I just think you guys need to really evaluate what you're doing. You know, you're supposed to be representing the kids, you know, not whatever other agendas may be going on. So, yes, this schedule is extremely stressful right now. I don't think you alleviated any stress with the changing of the calendar and the moving the semester up. I don't think it helps anyone. And I have not heard anything good. Maybe from 2 parents I heard liked the Bell schedule. And that was because their kids got to take another class. And one of them, it was a yoga class, which, you know, makes no sense. And at the very least, I think there should have been an option to have kids start school earlier, get out earlier. I know that you're going to be forced into having to start school late, but since you gave the 0 period option, I think it should have been also an option to take 0 period and not have a 6th for kids who aren't in sports and like mine who are up at 6 a.m. twiddling their thumbs because they're just earlier risers. And by 3:30, they're burned out. And they're up later now and not getting any more sleep over the whole thing. So just my opinion. Thank you.
Any other public comment on non-agenda items? Okay. It's all right, then we'll move on. We have reports, and we have first up is our student rep, Drew.
So I would say for the most part, we're all kind of getting ready for the break that is kind of much needed from a lot of people. I would say there's been a lot of holiday-related activities on all of our school sites. ASB at the high school had a staff luncheon where the staff came in during lunch and we shared a meal with all of our staff and administration, which was a lot of fun to kind of connect with teachers right before finals and the break. For the schedule, I mean, this is our first year that we're having finals before break, so it's a little hard to tell what the reaction is from people. I would say talking to a lot of people around campus, specifically at our high school, a lot of people like the idea of having this winter break off, like to have no commitments over winter break. Of course, I mean, we haven't had winter break yet, so we don't really know until after, but I'm excited to kind of talk to people and see how they're feeling about the schedule with finals specifically once we come back from break. But altogether, all school sites are kind of wrapping up the semester and taking finals and whatnot. And then Kalohe, who's not here today, and I had the opportunity to go down to San Diego for a conference. And it was a way for student board members to get educated about kind of what essentially is the board and what are the student member responsibilities. So I was talking to all the school board members that were at the conference from all over California, some of them having to represent over 14 school sites. It was unbelievable to see what other student board members were doing, and it was interesting to talk about what they're working on and how they're kind of improving. So I would say altogether it was a really meaningful experience, and I mean, a lot of the board members are still talking and communicating about ideas that they had with kind of where they wanted our board to go. But I mean, it was just a really great experience, and Chloe and I are both really grateful that we had the opportunity to attend. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for taking the time to attend. Appreciate it. We have a first report from LaBufa, from Ms. Hopper.
Contract, past practice, and board-approved policy by unilaterally changing the salary of our members. This resulted in a negative impact on our teachers who went out on maternity leave when the district went outside of the contractual sub-pay rate. The past practice has been to deduct a long-term sub rate of $150 per day from a teacher's pay. However, a select group of teachers were charged over $300 per day. It is my understanding the board was asked to approve this higher sub rate because the district was unable to find a substitute teacher. Perhaps and probably unknowingly, the board wasn't aware of this, but this increased sub rate was then charged to the teacher while she was out on maternity leave. Imagine trying to financially plan the cost to stay home with your newborn child, and these teachers, new mothers, are being penalized for making this decision. The unintended consequences of this resulted in a policy of discrimination against a select few teachers on maternity leave, promotes a gender pay gap, and is in a predominantly female profession. Knowing each of you, board members, I do not believe for 1 minute that that was your intention when you approved this increase in pay for long-term sub rate. And our teachers and myself, we would be shocked if this is something you actually would support. Unfortunately, the result was these unintended consequences. For the past 6 months, every time the association and the district met, there was no resolution offered by the district to make these teachers whole, and this is a simple solution. We have a choice before us. We are going to probably spend money either way. You can choose to spend money for arbitration or to make the teachers whole. What do you value more, a legal process or your teachers? We follow the IBB process, and LaBufa remains open to consideration of any resolution the district brings forth. The Teacher Association remains hopeful that we can resolve this matter prior to going to arbitration. And we are not sunshining tonight because we have other priorities that have been brought forward to us by our teachers. And so the board has asked, my board has asked that we wait on that.
Thank you. Margaret for CSEA.
Yes, good evening. CSEA, first of all, would like to thank the administration for continuing the process of a classified employee of the year, which started about, don't hold me to this, 6, 7 years ago when we brought it to the attention that classified was not being recognized. So I will leave that to Ms. Winston to announce the winners, because she has that probably on her side. But we not only announce an overall winner, but in different series. And this really does show our employees that they are appreciated. The ballot is done. There's nominating from each person and within the association, and then there's a balloting done, and there's an overall selection done on percentages in each series. So it's very transparent and fluid. The other thing I would like to thank the district for is Mr. Collin and I attended the SEMA Summit in Temecula, and it's really interesting to get the spin, and I'll use those words, on where one particular healthcare provider is going, and knowing that we're looking at utilization costs across the board as we go further into our looking at our insurance policies. Stepping aside from that, I'd like to just say one thing, and Ms. Vickers, President Vickers, you're the only one that will probably remember this up there. And so I'm saying this is really Margaret Water, even though I've been Margaret Water, the president of CSEA, for 11 years now, I believe. I asked this question 9 years ago when we were in some transition, and I ask it of all of us, whether we're parents, students, teachers, staff, board members, administration. There's a quote by Eldridge Cleaver. You might remember this. You're either the part of the solution or you're part of the problem. Which do you choose to be? And I think we all have to say that. Not in any situation, but we're all part of raising students of Laguna Beach. Whether we're parents, you know, the staff, the certificated, or administration. And it's not about what we're doing, it's about how we do it. And that's all I would like to say. And that's from Margaret Water, and even though I am in this position for 11 years. So you might remember when I said that, Ms. Vickers? So, and it used to be on my tagline on my email, but I finally took it off. So I say that with all love.
Our school recess officer, your presentation, please.
Good evening, board and members of our community. Thank you for being here. I want to introduce you to you our second school resource officer. It's definitely been a work in progress. And first, I want to personally say thank you for really voting for our second officer. He's been a blessing thus far. I want to talk to you about Officer Yoding, Officer Fred Yoding, on a personal level. Then I'll let him introduce himself. So Fred came to our department 2.5 years ago from West Covina PD. And I had the opportunity to train Fred in field training. And we clicked right away. And one thing I saw that was so special about him was every call that we went to, he really focused on the bigger picture, not necessarily putting someone in jail, but finding a way to resolve the problem. I thought that was special because it's hard to find someone of that caliber. And you know, great minds think alike. That's how I operate. And I remember also having a conversation with Fred about my intentions of starting a school resource officer program in our city. So this is before the SRO program was implemented. And I remember Fred looking at me and saying, you know what, my dream is to be a school resource officer one day. And fast forward, you know, after many nights in the car singing country songs, Jason Aldean and Blake Shelton, and, you know, we had some good memories in that car, you know. Yeah. We tried. But now we fast forward, now here we are. I want to tell you about the Fred I know on a personal level. He's a caring man. He's a family man. He has 2 elementary age children. His wife is an elementary school teacher. Today was his first day working on our campuses. And I tell you, it seems like he's been here for years. Every campus that we went on, the kids just embraced him. I'm talking about running up to him, hugging on his leg. I'm like, where's this coming from? You know, he's throwing the football around, and just the kids just took to him right away. And I think that's very special. And so I want to say thank you to our board for taking in Officer Yoding and you know, just trusting in the process and knowing that he's going to be a great addition to our children, our campuses in regards to safety and just really connecting with their kids and helping them through any problems or any help that they need to have in their education endeavors. And so without further ado, I want to introduce to you Officer Yoding here.
Hi. So I know Corn just talked me up quite a bit, but what he said is pretty much spot on. I have 2 kids in elementary school. My wife's an elementary school teacher, and you know, I look at what I would want from an SRO, and I'm going to take that same thing and apply it to what I'm doing now. you know, I've grew up with working with the Boys and Girls Club, which I'm sure you're all familiar with that organization, but I started very young with them and started mentoring even as a 15-year-old kid. I started mentoring at the Boys and Girls Club and been working with them for 15 plus years now. But I can see the impact a positive relationship has on these kids from the get-go. So, you know, I'm going to treat these kids like they were my own. Utmost, you know, the safety of the kids on campus, creating that safe learning environment, but also being a person they can come to whenever they need. I want to be that that role model, that mentor, someone that can lead them along in the hard times, but cheer them on in the good times. So I'm very, very blessed to be here. I'm very, very excited about the opportunity to work with the kids and see them succeed in life, because that's the ultimate goal, to have them succeed. So very, very blessed and excited to be moving forward. So I want to appreciate the opportunity to be here. So thank you.
Thank you.
And then very quickly, I want to cover some of the things that I did over the past few weeks. Gave a presentation to our distance education learners on the new SRO position and issues surrounding school safety, and just informing the parents on, you know, the services that the school resource officer provides. Taught 2 leadership classes. Went to the high school ASB, which was a very productive and we had some good conversation, and also to Ms. Lumblad's 9th grade class. We talked about leadership traits. What are the traits of the leader? I share my story. Of course, most of you know my story, but I talk about the people that came into my life, influenced me to help me get to where I wanted to go in my life. I talked about confidence building. What are some of the things that are important about confidence building? I talk about practicing and never stop learning, the importance of self-talk and focusing on the journey, having goals, and risk forward and run towards your fears. And I talk about my biggest fear was public speaking. And for years, I was in this shell, and I didn't want to grow because I didn't want to get in front of people and talk. That was my thing. And I talked about how I overcame that, now how I just embrace it and run towards it. Officer Yodin and I did a walkthrough of all of our campuses with Director of Facilities Ryan Zeta today. We got the OKAYAK reports, or Orange County Intelligence Assessment Center, all the recommendations they made for all the campuses to better safeguard them. I am proud to say our district has been very proactive in the response to these recommendations. And so we basically got a walkthrough of everything that was done, and I was just blown away because we are well prepared for critical incidents when you compare them to other school districts. And then personally, I want to say thank you to Ryan Zeta for his tenacity and just he has a very can-do attitude, and Officer Yoden even complimented on his personality today. He's just a great person to work with, and we are very blessed to have him in our school district. So that's all I have until the next one, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, we have board member reports. Dr. Kelly?
Was a board member's worst nightmare as I was coming up the street, and the street was blocked off. There were 4 or 5 fire engines, ambulances. The street was, you had to, I was able to pull into our building. I was informed that there was a gas leak. I just assumed that the gas leak was in our high school. It was just, Margaret and I were just devastated as far as what was going on. But the impressive thing was that Victoria had it all under control with Mr. Dudley. And thank God he had sight experience, that he's out there with the walkie-talkie. It seems like everything was under control, and everything was under control. And it was not the high school that had the gas leak. Some poor gentleman pulled into the pool area, knocked down the 2 steel cylinders in front of the gas heater, put his whole car in, got a free trip to the hospital. I don't know how he's doing, caused the gas leak, and the emergency responders did a superb job. Everything was taken care of, to the point when our meeting was over, 2 kids from the high school came over And I asked him, well, what was it like in high school when all this came on? He says, what went on? That no one in the high school seemed to know. But as a board member, it was just a very scary thing. But we have very exceptionally competent employees who had it all under control. Then I went to, well, the Joint Financial Committee meeting was going at the same time. Jeff did a superb job. Didn't have a lot of information because it's new in the year of getting it. The district remains fiscally strong. Our staff continues to appreciate the board's support. We move forward, continuously improve in this area. We talked about community-funded basis as far as how that affects our school district, why it's important to maintain reserves, and the history of basic aid. We also looked at the economic forecast as far as what's going to be projected for the future. UCLA Anderson School of Management does a very good forecasting, which is used by a lot of different school districts. Generally, the economy is expected to perform slightly better than previously forecast, and although we are still cautioning, there remains a high risk of a recession in 2020. Jeff also reviewed the interim budget changes. It was the same presentation he gave on November 12th. I think he's going to say something a little bit later in the meeting. Margaret, anything else that I missed on that? And then the last thing was I went to the holiday party, and I was just so impressed with the level of morale at all levels, from janitors to maintenance to coaches to teachers. That it was just very, very impressive, and I was grateful for the apprehension of the bell schedule, the apprehension that finals were coming up for the first time, but it was just a superb group, and I'm just so proud to be affiliated with the school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Perry.
Good evening. I attended the CCA or CTE, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to do this. I'd wanted to do it for a long time, and I asked what were the most important things I could do for College and Career Advantage, and she said, advocate for us and try to get our funding solidified at the state level, so it's not every year fighting for money. So I've written some letters, and I'm excited. We are going to go touring, so I can, when I'm advocating for it, I know what I'm talking about. So at the restaurant, the St. Regis, I'm not sure what it's called now, the 7 restaurants there underneath have 7 different kitchens, which I didn't know. So I'm going to tour those kitchens and see all the things that the students in the culinary classes are doing. And then I'm setting up going out to look at some of the healthcare facilities. And they are getting together a trailer of med tech that they can bring here to our campus for part of the time and then take to Capo Valley for part of the time, because you really need all that equipment for medical. So anyway, I'm very excited about that, and since 65% of our kids end up taking one or more of those classes, it's really worthwhile to be better informed. And the CSBA conference, I spent a lot of my sessions with students. The students that spoke about what they were doing, which was really exciting. And that Drew, you are kind of continuing on and looking at other things. I really appreciate that, because there's a lot going on. One of my favorite classes that I took was really about civics and government from the superintendent of Anaheim Union School District. And I can share more about that later. And then I also attended the STEM conference, and there, again, students, like a whole crew of 4th graders from Redlands, gave a presentation. Another crew that had made rockets out in the desert gave a presentation. I met for quite a while with some students from San Bernardino that were doing something in the lab that I didn't totally understand, but they were very excited about it. They were all working on their this class together, and said that there, It's a 4-year program that 9th graders start out in this medical program, goes on to 10th grade. 10th grade, they actually get biology credit for it. 11th grade, their 12th grade is a project, kind of like some of ours. But they have, some are going into forensic science, some are going into psychological more, some are more lab people. So it was really fun to hear all of them. So I was very excited about all the things our younger people are doing.
I attended the School Power District meeting. It was on Friday, November 22nd, and they provided an update on next steps with Fund a Need, also their teacher grants. They're kind of reconfiguring, and they'll be, School Power itself will be sharing the information with teachers via staff meetings. I think they're doing a good job of reflecting on their systems and maybe freshening them up. I also went to the CSBA conference, and I will share the decks with Victoria for the weekly update. I had a few sessions that I attended. I also wanted to congratulate LBUSD. It was recognized at CSBA for being a district, spotlight district on equity and equality for LGBTQ students. And I will share that information with Victoria to share with you guys. So it was really nice we were acknowledged for that. Otherwise, that's it.
Community Coalition was canceled, unfortunately. And then the holiday party was wonderful. Thank you for all the work that goes into that and putting that together. It's amazing how this room can change. And morale was really high. Everybody seemed very cheerful for the holidays. I also attended CSBA, and I already shared some of the decks, and I still have one that I need to share so that they can share it through. And then I also, for the equality with Mike, it was amazing to see LBSDs picked for that as an example of how well. And thank you, Lisa, for laying out all the stuff that was needed for that. I know you didn't fill it out thinking that was going to happen, but they picked our district because of all the information you gave them. And it was about all the policies we have in place, including one that we're discussing tonight around harassment, bullying, anti-harassment, anti-bullying, I should say, and about positive culture for students, and what we expect from our students and our staff, what we expect from our teachers, and what we expect from our volunteers and anyone going on campus, and all the role model working with students. So it was, and in particularly for LGBTQ.
Gotcha.
There we go. And specifically for that. And then the other one that I attended, I think most of us were in it, which I found fascinating, was really special ed. And it was, I'm looking around for Irene, but it really was a breakdown of all the laws and all the complication that goes into all these special ed decisions. And really by the time it gets to us, you really have to trust that they've gone through all these steps, because legally they have to go through all these steps. And it's so complicated, and it really is what's best for each student and what's for that student, not this big umbrella we can just apply so easily. And that when it comes to us, that's why I'm looking around for Irene, to trust that, everybody has, no, I see her. Oh, she's not here. That's why I keep looking for her back there. Because that by the time it gets to us, all the hands it's gone through, all the people that have worked on it, and for us to really trust all of our administrators and everybody. So, thank you.
Also attending the CCA meeting, I would just add a couple things, that they brought in 3 instructional coaches and introduced them to us. They are providing that kind of guidance for folks who come from business and industry that may not have the same teaching skills that when the teachers pick that up. And they are assigned to different school sites, mostly in Capo, because they have the majority of the schools. And also that we now are the evaluators of the executive director. That was the change that we had in our MOU. And so we had a meeting with Patty about her goals that she presented to us. She also is planning at this point to probably retire in December 2020. So that will be coming up. And also with the change in the MOU, that the CCA board the superintendent of capital will still make the decision, but it must be in conjunction with and approved by the CCA board, which is a change. So that was that meeting. I also attended some of our music programs, and again, our programs have grown so much, and they are so exceptional that it's a pleasure to be able to observe that and to see that we provide so much growth for our students in the musical performances. They do a lot of the presenting in the program, which is really, again, as we see with our students, they are so skilled and so articulate at such a young age that they stand up, and as Officer Ashton was saying, they are already adept at speaking in front of a large group, and so they have that opportunity besides the skills that they have with their whatever instruments they play or the singing that they do. And again, I said that day, but we always, and others mentioned it, appreciative of all the effort that the staff does to put on the holiday open house for all of our staff, because they do really enjoy it, and that coming together and putting everything else aside and just having a pleasant experience. Then I just wanted to point out a couple of, I guess, articles or information. I found it very interesting if anyone else saw the article on adulting, the classes that they're offering at Berkeley, because that is something that our students are not getting, and the skills, those, in a sense, what they used to call life skills, but they are so intrigued with it and so interested in it because they realize that that's something that they've been so intense on all the studying and all the academic preparation that they have missed that piece. So it's very interesting to see the eagerness at that level because they recognize that as a gap in what they have going forward out after they graduate. And then the other was recent information, continues to be information on e-cigarettes and or the vaping and the significant around 30% increase in chronic lung disease, which of course it's so becoming so prevalent among young people. And so as I know we do a lot here already, but to continue to expand whatever information we provide to hope to deter that, because those will have lifelong detriments to the students. And that's Dr. Floria.
May I add two things? Also, today was, they raised the age to 21 to buy tobacco. So it's awesome. And then, it came through today, and I was sharing with, we're talking about Community Coalition, even though we didn't meet. And then the other thing that came through today was, which was great news and big victory, was that we're now going to start researching gun violence so that we have data. So we as the country. For 20 years it's been banned, and now the federal government will now start researching or paying for research. I know, but I got past it. So excited. It's awesome. Victories.
Okay.
Victories.
All right. Dr. Floria.
Just briefly, again, thanks to the board for taking the time to go to CSBI. I know it can be hard to carve out that time for those that can make it. I think it's a good experience. It will be closer to home next year. It'll be in Anaheim, so it'll be much easier to get there. And thanks to Drew and Chloe for making the long trip down there and the long trip back. I know the weather was not cooperating necessarily that day either. So, but again, thanks to Victoria for putting that all together for us. I'm not going to say much about the employees of the year. I'll let Lisa do that. I usually sometimes steal her thunder. So, but again, just appreciate during this time all the hard work that goes in to continue to make this a great place for students. So appreciate the board on that and staff as well. So.
All right, drum roll. I've had a lot of lead in here. I'm excited to, and if you've checked your parent square, you've probably seen this. We had the opportunity earlier this week to surprise our employees of the year. And so this year's Teacher of the Year comes from El Moro, and it's Tamara Wong, third grade teacher at El Moro, who's very deserving of that honor. So it was very exciting to surprise her in front of her class, and they were very excited for her. And then at Laguna Beach High School, so remember, classified employees have different categories, and then we select one of those folks to be the overall winner. So in the office and technical category, and the overall winner is Dorinda Klein at Laguna Beach High School. And I have to tell you, Laguna Beach High School staff really made a concerted effort this year to take over the nominations and the balloting process, because they have all the winners this year. So Dorinda was the winner in the office and technical. In maintenance and operations is Gary Furman, who's a night custodian. You've probably seen him around. In the paraeducator category, Robin Lux, who is the math lab instructional assistant and supports students.
In support services and security, our campus supervisor, Megan Weinert. And in child nutrition, Liz Drudy. So all of our high school staff are winners this year, and we're excited to recognize them at a future board meeting. And then I also wanted to mention we received a flyer from OCDE today with their STEM newsletter. And right on the cover is our own Carrie Denton, who is the OCDE's STEM Teacher of the Month. And actually, she gets 2 months because they do December and January together. So I'll share that with you in the update this week, but that was a nice surprise to see today.
If I could, I'd like to call up our Chief Auditor, Royce Townsend from Eide Bailey, to give a report on the 2018-19 annual financial report, which we will be bringing back to you a little bit later for acceptance. Okay.
So it's Eide Bailey now. So you may have known our firm is Vavrinick Trine Day & Company in the past, and so I just want to take a moment to explain that we have changed our name. We merged with a little larger firm, and what that has done for us is it's just provide us tremendous resources. I had people helping me from out of state in order to issue over 400 local educational agency audits as of last night. So it also freed me up. For the very first time in 25 years, I went to the same conference you did. And I obviously I didn't see you because it was very busy. I was really surprised at how busy it was. And I'll say that the one part of it that I was struck by is I had a number of new board members come up to our booth, and they wanted to ask me about the role of the audit. You know, what is your role as an auditor? So to kind of put it into a sense of what they could really kind of grasp, I said, you know, you're concerned about your health, and you should be, and so you go to a professional to make sure that your health is such that it enables you to do the things that you need to do. And the audit really focuses on the financial health of a school district. It's paramount because as many things as you may want to do, if your district is not stable from a financial standpoint, it prevents you from doing those things. It's as simple as that. And to segue into the audit, really what this audit is intended to do is to provide you a level of assurance that the information that you're getting from your business management is information that you can rely on as you make your business decisions. So that kind of summarizes it in a nutshell. There's many pages in this audit report. We've talked about this in the past, but really to summarize the outcome of the audit, that's all identified on page 86. And here's where the auditor offers an opinion. The opinion is the only thing in this audit report that's actually the auditor's. Everything else is your information. We own the opinion. And as far as the three areas that we were looking at, the financial statements as a whole, federal awards that the district received, and of course levels of compliance that you had with that, and the same with the state awards. We are offering you an unmodified opinion. The unmodified opinion is the highest level of assurance that the audit can present. And I always say that if you ever hear an auditor say something other than unmodified, you really want to gain some clarity as to why that occurred. So from a high-level viewpoint, this is where you rest as far as June 30th, 2019. And actually, this is the information that you really want to focus on. But I always direct the governing board to, I think, the second most important page, other than outcomes, and that's your schedule of financial trends and analysis on page 72. And why that is I always say that you don't really know where you're going unless you know where you've been. And that's what a trend page is intended to provide you. And from a fiscal standpoint, your reserve balance is, in my estimation, right where it needs to be. It's steady. You continue to make the decisions that you need to make from a business standpoint to provide the level of services that are expected, but at the same time, you're maintaining a nice reserve balance. So in the event that there's another recession, which at some point is inevitable. I mean, I think we've all heard the story that we have been out of recession for longer than any time ever. And so we're expected to, so to speak, fall off the cliff. And without adequate reserves, not only can you maintain the existing programs that you have, but it's hard to pay for any new improvements that you want. So from my standpoint, this is a good place to be. In any event, we always find opportunities to improve on some specific areas. Back in the back of the audit report, we have what we call some management letter comments related to your ASB activity. Always focus on that because I do think that those are the areas that, unfortunately, when they get to where they're uncontrollable, they are definitely ones that everybody hears about. So with that said, I'm here to answer any questions you may have regarding your audit report. Yes, yeah. I believe this was, and I'll just speak to it, I think this report was issued November 15th, so we would have sent it sometime after that.
We have this on as our first action item, so we'll have public comment if there's any then, but, and the motion and the vote, but if you have any questions, he's here right now, so. I know, it's a big document.
And I will say, if you have any other questions subsequent to this and you want some clarity, please reach out and we're happy to provide that for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I was just gonna say, the only delay with ASB this time, though, is just the 12 days, right? Just the holding of the.
Is that with the
That
cash receipting process?
Yeah, that was the only thing that, everything else improved. Is it like,
Well, and the other thing is, that's a good
Really
point.
improved.
We always will go to your high school because it's, you know, ASBs will generally run maybe $500,000 of activity. It's really astounding. But if that's the only item that we identify,
yeah.
that is an improvement, I
It's a
suppose,
big
from the previous year.
improvement, yeah.
Stay with it.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I sure appreciate being here. Pleasure working with your district. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have public hearing. Is that, how do we proceed with the?
So, we received LaBufa's initial proposal about 10 days ago, and it's in the board agenda, but based on the comments tonight, I'm going to recommend that we pull this item.
Okay. Do we need to vote on pulling it? Okay. We need a motion and a vote? We have a motion to pull?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Student votes. And, case passes 5-0. Thank you. We move to our consent calendar. I know we need to pull A2 and A3, approval of minutes when board members were not here. Are there any other items that board members would like to pull?
Maybe, can I make a comment?
You make a comment if it's not a discussion.
It's not a comment. I
No,
just
it's
wanted,
not. I mean, before we,
but we have to do the
we
motion.
have to,
and then
have the- right.
Thank you.
Board members, there's nothing to pull. Okay. Then I would ask if there's public comment on the consent calendar. See none. Ask for a motion for consent calendar items A1, B through O.
Second.
Okay. Carrie, you had a comment?
My comment was on J. Oh, thank you. My comment was on J, and I really am grateful for the fact that we use a service such as San Diego to help us, I'll mess up the word, disaggregate, really look at the data so that we can really look at what our kids need versus the big, broad data that makes it harder to really help. So thank you for bringing this to the district. Thanks for continuing to utilize it. And we can see the impact with the students.
Student vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Board members, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries 5-0. I need a motion, please, for the A2, the November 12th regular meeting minutes. And this is a,
I think I was
no-
these, right? So
member
moved.
Norman and a member Kelly were not at this meeting.
Okay, so moved.
Okay. Any public comment on these minutes? Student vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Board members, just 3 of us can vote.
I was at that meeting.
You were at that meeting?
Yeah.
She's on November 12th. It says,
It came late?
oh, okay.
Okay.
There you
it
are.
came late?
Second
So you're
page.
not at the start. I just looked at the first page.
Okay, yeah, 'cause I was like, I was here.
Okay, I looked at the first page, and you can, they'll amend that. It's just member Kelly. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Member Kelly abstains. Carries 401. The minutes of the special meeting of October 10th. If I have it right this time.
I was not at that.
You were not there,
I
and
wasn't
Member
there.
Perry was not there. Correct? So we need a motion, please.
So moved.
Okay. Is there any public comment on these minutes of October 10th? Not then, student vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Board members? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, and 2 abstentions, Normandin and Perry. Thank you. And we move now to information items. We have none tonight, so our first action item is approval to accept the 2018-2019 district audit. Public comment on this item? Or we have presentation first, Jeff?
Thank you, President Vickers. Staff's recommending the acceptance of the financial report for 2018-19. As Mr. Townsend had mentioned, the district's continuing its positive financial position and trending upwards. So the report shows the accuracy of our business department, and I really appreciate Raymond Lee and Tui Bui on our team that really is most robust roles in preparing these reports. And so with that, I would recommend acceptance of the audit.
Thank you. Public comment on the audit? I have one card from Sherry Morgan.
A video feed, it's really hard to follow from home. So unfortunately, we have to sit and wait for the items of interest. So I want to thank you for combining them all at the same time so I can speak on a couple of different things. I find it interesting that you are voting to approve an audit that Member Kelly just mentioned was just received today. And if you're going to be fiscally responsible, not that I doubt or question if you're hiring a professional, but don't you think that it is your civic duty to take the time to analyze the audit to make sure that it's correct? Because sometimes a number can transpose. I'm not saying it is, just saying you probably should be cautious. So maybe you should take a step back and think about things. As Mrs. Warder mentioned, from Eldridge Cleaver, Eldridge, I can't say those letters together, Eldridge Cleaver, are you going to be a part of the solution or are you going to be part of the problem? I would also like to point out when the SROs were here presenting, when Korn was presenting the new SRO, Member Normandin, you glanced up 6 times. You did not look at him. You've been on your iPad almost the entire meeting. Nobody else has been on their electronics at all. There's pen and paper in front of you. When the new SRO was speaking, you glanced up 4 times. You actually appeared to look like you were listening on the 5th time, and that was maybe all of 20 seconds. And when SRO Korn started speaking again, you glanced up 8 times, but you never actually stopped writing. You never actually put everything down and actually paid attention to the people who have given their time to be here tonight as well, volunteer or otherwise, elected or not. Maybe you need to consider when we come to board policy, no electronics on the board during a meeting, because it's very disrespectful.
Excuse me. Are there any other public comments on the audit? Okay. Then have a motion, please.
Well, my concern is, can we have more time with the audit? Okay.
So would you like to make a motion
Yes.
to pull it?
So I'd like to make a motion that we put it at the next board meeting so we have time to review it.
Student vote?
What am I voting on?
We're bringing the audit back, so there's more time for board members to review it.
Let's bring it back.
You have a copy also, correct?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
That's winter reading for you, winter break.
Board
We're not allowed
member,
to assign it.
board member vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Our next item, action item 15, approval of resolution 19-16, established interfund transfers of $1 million from the general fund to the special reserve for non-capital outlay fund for 2019-20. Mr. Dixon.
Thank you, President Vickers. Staff's recommending the board approve a transfer of $1 million from general fund to Fund 17. This was built into our first interim budget, and it is recommended to do this so that we maintain our reserve levels at current level to total budget.
Thank you. Any public comment on this resolution? Motion, please?
Second.
Jim and Carol. Any discussion? I think that the recognition is pretty understood now that we need to fund ourselves, and so that all the capital projects that we have in this district to handle and going forward to keep our facilities as up to date are dependent on this.
Well, this is more for the Fund 17.
Fund
just for our
17,
basic
okay, this is our
reserve.
basic aid
Yes.
replacement fund.
Yes.
Okay. Same thing, except maybe more important, especially
Yes.
with our auditor's comment that, there are recessions come and go.
Yep, and the volatility of our funding source is much greater than the local patrol funding formula.
And it was dropped from the state recently, for this time, any more guarantee of funding. Right. Any other discussion? Board member, roll call. We do our student also? Okay.
Mr. Fink?
Yes.
Mrs. Vickers? Mrs. Normandin? Mrs. Wolf?
Yes.
Mrs. Perry? Dr. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you. Action item 16, approval of resolution 19-17, establish interfund transfer of $1.2 million from the general fund to the special reserve fund for capital improvement plan for 2019-20. That's the one I was.
This is the capital improvement program fund. Staff is recommending the transfer of $1.2 million from general fund to Fund 40 to support the facility upgrades as identified in the facilities master plan, which is also will be brought back to the board for approval in early 2020.
Public comment on this resolution? Motion, please? Any discussion?
Mr. Fink?
Yes.
Mrs. Vickers?
Yes.
Mrs. Normandin?
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf?
Yes.
Mrs. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you. Action item 17, approval of resolution 19-18, established interfund transfer of $900,000 from the general fund to the special reserve fund for facilities repair and replacement program for 2019-20, also known as FERP.
Yes. Thank you, President Vickers. The facility repair replacement program was established as part of the old general obligation bond back in early 2000s. It allows us to serve as a deferred maintenance program for all of our major HVAC, roofing systems, and are necessary to maintain all of our buildings and facilities at the levels that our community expects. Also included in the 10-year facilities master plan.
Thank you. Public comment on this resolution? Motion, please?
So moved.
A second?
Any discussion? Thank you for our greater community that would remember the commitments the district made when the bonds passed, that particularly, I think, coming from the Laguna Taxpayers Organization, that we would take better care of our facilities going forward. And we have committed to that, and we have honored that commitment. And I think anyone in the community that comes and looks at our facilities would note that. Roll call.
Mr. Fink?
Yes.
Mrs. Vickers?
Yes?
Mrs. Normandin?
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf?
Yes.
Mrs. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you. Action item 18, approval of revisions to the theater manager job description. Ms. Winston.
Thank you. As you know, we try to regularly update job descriptions, and we are looking at our theater staff, and so the first role in that revision is the job description of the theater manager. We've made a lot of changes since 2006 to our processes and procedures, so these revisions reflect the updated duties of the position.
Thank you. Public comment on this action item?
And I was just looking at the job description, and one thing I noticed, and I don't know if it has changed, but I used to be on the board of the Performing Arts Boosters, and it mentions that he'll be a board member. Yeah, and so I don't know what that means, and I just thought he wasn't a board member and hasn't been a board member, so I just question that. That's my only comment.
Can I speak, or do we need a motion?
We need a motion before you can address that in your comments, in your discussion. Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? Have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Okay, so I noticed that it said he's a board member too. When I read it, because I've been to those meetings, he comes to the meeting, but I don't understand if he's a voting member or Is there another way to describe it, not as a board member, but as a representative that serves on the board? That's it, right?
We can get clarification. We
Okay.
can bring this one back.
Okay.
If that's,
It's
for
just that one
clarification.
sentence that I noticed.
Yeah, unless Mr. Conlon knows off the top of his head. You gotta go to the mic.
Because it's really a booster organization, and even the teachers that lead the program are just representatives. It's the parents that are the board members, right? Okay.
Yeah, it was a little, like, I said, that was pre-existing part of the.
Oh, it
the-
was?
Yes, that was
Okay.
not a new addition.
Right.
That had stayed, so we were uncertain, we didn't want to completely take it out since it was there from the very beginning. But yeah, so we know he definitely attends, but since it was there previously, we didn't want to strike it completely since
Okay.
it was.
So we could change it to participates in the Performing Arts Boosters board meetings? Or attends, but
Yeah,
Performing
he
Arts
just
Boosters
acts as a
board meetings?
representative for the theater, right? Yeah, there's something that he's not a board member. He's there to give a report.
So would the board like us to we can go ahead and make that change and you can approve it with that
Yeah,
amendment?
that would be fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's the only thing I saw.
So I would say attend Performing Arts Boosters meetings as a representative of the district?
Any other discussion? Student rep vote.
Yes.
Thank you. Board members, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carries 5-0. Next is action item 19, approval of continued career technical education incentive grant, CTEG, memorandum of understanding between Laguna Beach Unified School District and College and Career Advantage, CCA, for the period of June 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2021. Ms. Winston.
Thank you. So we're recommending approval of this MOU with CCA to allow us to take advantage of the CTIG grant. And you'll see that does require a match of $2 for every dollar received, and we estimate to receive about $225,000.
Thank you. Public comment on this item? Motion, please? Discussion.
So where does our portion of the money come from?
I'm sorry, what was it?
Oh, where does our portion of the money come from?
From College Career Advantage, the grant, the state grant,
Yeah,
as a categorical from the state of California.
okay.
Just double check, are you referring to the $2 that we spend to the $1?
Yeah,
That's just our general fund dollars.
The matching part, where we
Matching
got
part.
that.
Sorry, I think, yeah,
So we just,
Yeah.
yeah,
it's just general fund. Yeah,
Okay.
matching.
Right. Thank you. Student vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Board members, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Action item 20, approval of the Strong Workforce Program, K-12 Pathway Improvement Grant Service Agreement between Laguna Beach Unified School District and Orange County Superintendent of Schools for the period of June 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2021. Is this also you, Lisa?
Thank you. So the board made a commitment to participate in the Stronger Workforce Program as part of the grant with OCDE. And as part of that, we have access to four components of that. One is the Career Counseling Coordinator, which is Kelly Shearer, who's been doing a fantastic job of aligning our CTE from K-12. Also, the funds can be used toward building our CTE dual enrollment, also enhancing career education opportunities and heightening work-based learning. And so this grant requires a match of $1 for every dollar received. And the estimated grant amount to be received is $444,000.
Thank you. Public comment on this item? Motion, please?
A second?
Any discussion?
Is it, they're doing a new grant this year, right?
Yes, there's a second component that they're working on developing that would follow this grant.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a little, from what I can tell, looks more scaled down than not as
Than the
robust.
previous one?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, that's what I thought.
And this money comes out of our general fund also?
The match? Yes.
The match?
Mhm.
The match, I meant.
Yep.
And how does this coordinate with CTE? Because I know they look at dual enrollment also.
Right, and so it's all aligned. Sorry. So how does this align with CCA? Well, I think it works in conjunction with that. It's just another component of all of our CTE programs. CCA is a part of that. But this really helps us with alignment focused on K-12. It's a K-12 grant.
Okay.
And we've budgeted all this.
This is also a grant that originates at OCDE because they did the consortium of all the county school districts and got that 13 million. So because I do some work with OCDE separate in my job, and they're writing that grant. They just finished it this week. So, and then they feed out the funds to all the districts supporting CTE programs.
So you said it's already all figured out where it's going to be used?
Right. We had to indicate the areas that we would participate in, and so you'll notice the date on the grant is June 1st. They just now sent us the MOU, but we made a commitment. The board voted and made a commitment to participate.
Right.
And so when we did that, we identified these components, and so it became effective June 1st. So we went ahead and hired the career counseling.
Right. Okay.
They knew the money was coming. This is just the agreement that puts that into writing.
If I remember, this was our decision to apply for the grant ourselves rather than do it with capital through CCA. Is that correct or not?
Correct. So we had talked about there was some interest in potentially joining just with CCA and applying for a grant. However, the view was that there was only so much dollars, and the county was going to be more than likely going to be receiving the money. So we joined with the county. CCA also, if I believe, also did a little bit as well. So I know capital's part of it. So.
Any other discussion? Student vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Board members, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Action item 21, approval of agreement with Instructure, Inc. to utilize Portfolium for the 2019-20 and 2021 school years for the amount of $21,500. Ms. Winston.
Thank you. So Portfolium is one of the components we're looking at using some of the funds from the Stronger Workforce Grant. To help, so it's for CTE students. It helps you build an online portfolio. You can take it with you after you leave, and you basically can kind of add projects and assignments to it, and then employers can look at it. And it really helps you kind of solidify. It's kind of like a cross between a portfolio and an online resume, but it's just more interactive. So we look forward to having our CTE students be able to participate in that and take that with them.
Thank you. Public comment? Motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Any discussion? Student vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Board members, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Action item 22, approval of additional services to design a seismic building rehabilitation to Runau Clark Architects for Thurston Middle School field and classroom modernization project. Mr. Dixon.
Thank you, President Vickers. I'm actually going to bring up Ryan Zeta, Director of Facilities. Even though this is an ad service additional cost, it actually has potential to bring our district a lot of money, and I think Ryan's done a lot of great work on this, and I want him to present it.
Thank you.
Good evening. This additional service from Runau Clark Architects at the Thurston Middle School's field and classroom modernization project is to add a seismic retrofit to the building 7000 in the rear of the campus. The original plan was to renovate the building into 2 classrooms, which still is the plan. But in doing so, through the schematic design process, the classroom sizing would be undersized. They'd be less than the standard 960 square feet. And so in order to achieve a standard-sized classroom to meet our standard facility layout, it would require a seismic retrofit to the building. It's a small fee in design services, and it does come with a construction cost to make those structural enhancements to the building. But what the silver lining is that there is state funding for this type of work, and it's estimated to be a little over $1 million, and we would be prioritized to the top of the list. So next time bond funds are available at a state level, we would be eligible to receive those funds. So it's not about if we'd receive them, it's more of a question of when we would receive them.
any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Can we go ahead with the project, with our planning and actually whenever the time is that we're going to do that?
Yes, the cash flow was built into the facilities master plan. We were able to pay for the entire project as
Okay.
is. So this is just really, this will help relieve or alleviate our general fund in the out years.
Okay, so we, even if we're at the top of the list, we can, it doesn't hold us up.
Right, exactly.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Student vote?
Yes.
We probably have two. Board members, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. 23, approval of board policies and bylaws, first reading. These are the policies that we indicated to come forward to this meeting after our policy workshop meeting. And they're, do you have board members have ones that they need to bring forward individually? We did spend a lot of work at that meeting on them, so.
Yes, I have quite a few.
Do you want to take them all individually?
Since it's the first reading, I think we should.
Is there consensus on that to take them?
These were with the updates that we did.
Yes.
We had that long policy workshop. That was
I
a public
remember,
meeting.
yes, I remember.
That was a public meeting.
But there wasn't public there because it was in the morning, so this
And it was in the
public
afternoon,
to-
actually, 1 to 4.
Yeah, it was in the afternoon.
Yes, I have. Okay, so which one did you have, Ms. Normandin?
I have C, and only from after attending the conference, I just
C?
changed
Okay.
it. Oh, we can't talk about it, sorry.
See, I'm sorry, which one was it?
C.
C on the agenda is 5131.2.
Okay. Oh, the bullying, okay.
Okay, then we'll just, if that's, we'll have to bring them each one forward. Is that,
4 or 5?
which ones?
Well, I have them written on the page, so,
Okay.
okay, 1, 2,
Can you tell us that, can I point to this? Can you tell us that?
yes. I did it the other way.
Oh,
So,
okay.
A, B, E, I think C also. I think C also. Let me see
So
my
A,
D.
B, C, E.
A, B, C, E, I believe. I was looking at D. Let me see if I had something on D. Yeah, I have D also.
We could make a motion for F through N.
Is that acceptable for the rest of them?
Yes.
And that includes the board bylaws?
Oh, the ones on the second page. Wait.
That's all under the same first reading.
Okay, right. No, I have M. I have L. J, I think. No, I don't need to do that one. L and M.
Okay. So we can take the policies first.
Oh, and
Yeah.
N, I think I had something.
And N?
Mhm.
F, G, H, I, J, K, are those, that's, F is world language instruction, G is library media centers, H, education for English learners, I, supplemental instruction, J is conflict of interest, K is meetings and notices. She added in.
I'm fine with this.
Okay. Then have a motion on those?
Second?
Okay, now that we've motioned those, and any public comment on the items that we're bringing forward? Okay, that's why it's just, does it have the titles? Okay, are the titles on your page? So we just have a motion to bring forward a first reading, and these, of course, were discussed, each one individually, at our policy meeting last month, right? It was also a recorded meeting, but world language instruction, library media centers, education for English learners, supplemental instruction, conflict of interest, meetings and notices. Those will go individually. So individually, you don't have the numbers, the A, B, C numbers, okay? Any other public comment on these? Student vote on bringing these forward, moving them to a second reading.
Yes.
Okay. Board members, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Now we will begin with A, which is policy 1312.1, complaints concerning employees. Are we having any presentation on this?
No, we already presented on it, so I
Right.
don't know what the questions are.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, we don't. Okay. So then, you can take public comment first on, this is a policy, complaints concerning district employees. Okay. A motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Discussion.
Is this basically for the public and not for employees?
Is your question, I'm not sure I
I know
understand.
that, I know that employees, there's another route that they can go.
This is for any member of the public or employee to
Or
file a
employee.
complaint
Okay.
against another employee.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. And I wondered about the third paragraph regarding complaint about the superintendent in writing filed with the board. So do all board members learn about that, or just the board president?
I guess it would depend on where the complainant would file that complaint. So I would say they could send it to all board members, or they could send it to the board president, and then it would, then fall on the board president as to whether or not that would be.
But I read the line as saying the board, so
Yeah,
we act as a 5% entity, so to me it's the board.
Right.
That's how I read it.
Well, I know before something has been sent to the board president that the person thought would be shared, but wasn't. So I just wanted to clarify, if the board president gets something, if the whole rest of the board decides where we go from there, or just the president.
I would also
That
just
would not
mention
be
that this
me.
is new language.
Oh, it is,
This is
okay.
added
That
to
would
this
not be me.
policy.
I have not experienced that, so it would be someone else.
And then there's the issue of disseminating information that doesn't violate the Brown Act.
Right.
So it has to either be agendized in something, so that's where you have to get consult probably from legal counsel. So the board can be informed, but through the proper,
Channels.
Yeah.
Right. But it should be the board, not just the board president.
Right.
Okay, because that did not happen before.
This is a new policy.
I see. Okay, good. This is better. And then it seems like the paragraphs that we took out on the second page really give more accountability. And why aren't we keeping those?
I think those paragraphs that have strike through are restated. So the first one has to do with that there are regulations which permit the public to submit. That would be the AR, that's the process.
Uh-huh.
And then these regulations protect the rights of involved parties. Those are stated in the paragraph above, talking about confidentiality, and actually gives more language to that
Okay.
effect.
Okay.
And then the last sentence there says the board may serve as an appeals body. There's a whole section added for appeals below. So it's actually expanded. It's taking that language and it's been expanded.
Okay.
This is I would say a more comprehensive
More
policy.
comprehensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's better.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion?
Should we approve it? Go on to the next one?
We bring it as a second reading. We'll have to vote to bring this back as a second reading. Student vote? Huh?
Yes.
Wait. Do we have a motion?
We have a motion, because we just started discussing it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed it.
That's okay.
I was somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I think I moved.
Okay. Did you get that?
I got it.
Okay,
It's
thank you.
down the wrong
Student vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Board members, all in favor?
Aye.
To bring it forward to second reading. Thank you. The next one is listed as B on ours, but it is transportation, Board Policy 3540. So we don't have a presentation since we did this at the workshop. So I'd ask for public comment on this policy. Motion, please.
So moved. Second?
Discussion.
Well, as I brought up before, in other districts, in this policy, or instead of 3540, it might be 3541, they provide transportation for high school students. And in all of the districts that I looked at, which is not every district in California, they provided for, the furthest away was 3 miles, 2.5, 2, and then there were special modifications if there was not a sidewalk next where students could walk to school. As in, we don't have sidewalks out Laguna Canyon Road, and those students are 4.9 miles away. And we, in South Laguna, don't have sidewalks for much of the way. We're over 4 miles away. Newport Coast is almost 4 miles away. And there's also provisions for students that are on free and reduced lunch to have transportation. So I don't know if it seems like it's really important for kids to be able to get to school without a problem. I don't have as much contact with kids. A couple talked to me about this being a problem. Drew, have you heard from anybody that would like there to be transportation at the high school?
I mean, I think for the high school, I think that there's a lot of kind of times that a lot of kids get out, especially with the spell schedule. So a lot of kids don't have sixth. So I kind of see an issue where if we had transportation, when would we have it?
Mm-hmm.
Because it could be after fifth period, because I know a lot of kids get out after fifth period because they don't have a sixth period.
Uh-huh.
And then I know kids who get out after sixth period, and I know kids who play sport who get out later than that. So I think there's a lot of, it gets complicated, but I mean, I think there's definitely ways around it.
Mhm.
For the canyon, I don't,
For the ones off El Toro Road, like
Right.
getting to school.
I mean, I've never heard of a student walking to school.
No, they don't walk, but students have said that it's a problem to get here. Like, their parents have to go
okay.
to work later because they have to drop them off, or
Okay, because
something
I know
along
you.
those-
I
those-
thought you inferred that kids were walking. along the
No,
canyon
I'm saying
because
that
there
would be
wasn't
really
a
safe for them, not safe for
Yeah.
them to walk.
Okay,
I
that
don't
would
know
not
any
be sa-
kids
yeah,
that walk
I mean, I would
either.
hope no one's walking on
Yeah,
the
I
canyon.
hope
But
not
I mean,
too.
I think for our high school specifically, I think there's a lot of students who do drive.
Right.
Who get their license like as soon as possible. So I think there's carpooling, but of course that's not reliable 100% of the time.
Right.
Um,
And if you're a freshman or a sophomore, you're
Right,
usually not old
exactly.
enough.
Yeah. So I mean,
Can I interject, Sue? I don't want you to feel you're put on the
Yeah,
spot.
I don't,
because-
I don't want,
because you
I
wouldn't-
don't mean to put you on the
I
spot.
appreciate you
I
asking,
just wanted to
Susan.
know your point of view.
Well, we appreciate your unofficial comments, but I want to go back to, we have visited this before, and I don't remember whether it's a policy workshop meeting or prior, and I'm not sure where we left it as far as if we want to give board direction to gather any kind of data, because we're talking about unknowns as far as this, what level we would want the data from, and if it's, if students, we don't know. We're talking about something we don't know for our community, if there is actually a broad-based issue. So that's.
The
Well,
question,
I think it might not be broad-based. I mean, it might be small.
And there is a significant cost attached to it. Is that correct, Mr. Dixon? I need to turn mine off.
Yes, we haven't looked at the potential cost impact of this, but given our busing contract, to add additional routes would be a significant impact to our budget, but we haven't looked at that data yet. We need to compile it.
the question that I asked at our previous meeting was, do the site administrators have a pot of money that if this is brought to their attention, that they can take care of it on the side? And I was informed that yes, it is true. So I'm comfortable as far as with the policy as it is.
In other districts where there might be some outliers, they sometimes give the students a voucher so they can take public transportation, because sometimes there is public transportation in. Sometimes they send a smaller bus or a car. I'm just concerned that all of our students can get to school safely, and that it isn't putting their parents at risk of being to work late or something else. And it seems like almost all other districts do this. And I don't know. I know Mrs. Vickers said we haven't done that before, and maybe we haven't, but maybe we should.
I don't see that this policy mandates where the buses go. This is a policy just on quality of transportation. I think the issue you're discussing, we could get some data, like if there's added buses, we have a small bus yard, we're limited by that. We're limited by time. We're limited by so we could look at that, but I don't think that lands in the policy of transportation. I think it lands in something else that we analyze as a budget category. That's the way I interpret it, because if you read this, it doesn't say top of the world or Aurora. It talks about.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
But the
so.
other school districts, I have Clovis here, I have Orange Unified, I have Newport Mesa. They address it in terms of elementary students more than 1 mile away, middle school students more than 2 miles away.
Right, and those are
High school.
large, expansive districts
Right,
with
but they do-
25 schools.
They
or
all
whatever.
do it by the number of miles away from the student's home
Okay.
to school, and we could do that.
So I think the policy is just fine as it's written. I think your question is a kind of a different focus to get more data on it, to understand the need, to see if it's possible in our small district. But
I'm trying to think back. I think what we ended up with is that we would need to go to the high school site administration to have them gather data to see if we actually have an issue. And then how, if that is an issue, of course we want students to be able to get to school, but is it an issue? But I can't remember where we landed as far as bringing that up, if we wanted to give that direction or ask Dr. Ullman if he to gather that data, or whoever would do it.
Right, it needed to come up at this meeting at the tail end if there's consensus, because we didn't have that in the last workshop for you to provide the direction at that workshop.
We didn't, but, and also, isn't there something about free and reduced lunch students being able to have transportation?
Use bus pass fee, right?
But what about high school?
Well, we don't bus high school at this point, so I can't answer that.
From what I understand, it's only where you're providing busing, and it is a free and reduced, it would be a district-paid bus pass.
And we can ask at the end of the meeting as far as for the data, as far as you're at.
And
one.
so it could be possible, like I said, other districts give money to Orange County Transportation Authority. Or
Correct.
Give
So
their kids passes.
what Dr. Kelly was referring to was students who need that ability. We have Title I funding that you can use for bus passes.
Okay,
So
have
you
we-
use it for McKinney-Vento students. We can use it for students who, it's an allowable expense under the Title I dollars that we have, so.
Okay, great. Like I said, 2 students have talked to me about it, but maybe that's all there are.
Student vote?
Yes.
Board members, all in favor of bringing this as a second reading?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0.
No.
No, okay, carries
No, I would
4-1.
like to have some more details in there.
The next policy is C on ours, which is the bullying policy, Board Policy 5131.2. Is there public comment on this policy? You can list them on the one card, or submit individual cards.
One clarification on what the color changes mean on the bullying policy that are in blue and black. Because then you have another page 190 where everything is crossed out. Like the whole policy is crossed out. So it's kind of hard to say what's new because it's not in red or it's not in any of the colors that have been shown so far. And then I also had a comment. It has some detail about students and what the recourse will be for students, but there's just one little teeny tiny line there for any employee who permits or engages in bullying or retaliation related to bullying shall be subject to disciplinary action up to and including dismissal. But there's no parameters of definition or as it is above with the students. And again, the values and goals of the district definitely seem to be omitting administration responsibility within the same values that we're asking our kids to follow. And sometimes they say, you know, I was at a store, today, I was at Hobie downtown, and the cutest little boy, he couldn't have been more than maybe 18 months, maybe 2 years old. His mother had him in his arms, and they were walking through the store, and they went by a red and black flannel shirt. And the little boy pointed at it and said, "Daddy." And I heard the mom comment about how her husband has a red and black flannel shirt at home, and that the baby associated the shirt with her dad. So I think it's really important to remember that you can't underestimate how important actions are over words. Words can be just as hurtful, sometimes more, but so are actions. And just because some things are said that, well, we would like to do this or it should be this, if your actions are saying otherwise, then that's the message that you're giving our students, not what you put on paper. So a lot of these policies are very student-focused. There's not a whole lot of information on how you're going to hold yourselves and administration responsible for their own actions and what the recourse would be if you violate any of these policies. So I'd like to see that put in there somehow. Thank you.
Yes, please. Answer on the colors, Ms. Morgan?
So on this particular policy, the green are comments that were added during the board policy workshop. The blue are what was the new changes that were presented originally at the board policy workshop. And the strikeouts were originally highlighted. CSBA suggested removing all of them. So at the board policy workshop, they were highlighted so the board could see them. And now they are suggested strikeouts so that they are now presented that way.
Are any of these new state laws or updates, is that the blue?
Get a motion, please.
So moved. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, Lisa can answer this.
Okay.
Okay. So yes, there is a new policy, as we just discussed at the policy workshop, that mandates districts to adopt procedures for preventing acts of bullying before December 31st, 2019. As you may recall, what we discussed at the board policy meeting is that the majority of the strike-through now becomes part of the AR, and the AR is how staff operationalize the policy. And so that's the process. And I also want to point out, this is a student policy that by the numbering, so the 5,000 series applies to students. Our employee board policies, for which we have a uniform complaint process and those kinds of procedures, are in the 4,000s. So we do have similar complaint or policies related to employees that is in the 4,000 series. So that's why this looks like a lot of strike-through. If you may recall, we talked about that at the policy workshop. The new section puts us in compliance with the new law changes, and then a revised AR talks about the different definitions, examples of type of bullying, and it also includes a comprehensive section on cyberbullying, which is an area that needs to be addressed per the law.
Does this include bullying off school campus? I mean, what's the scope? Where does this all apply?
Again, with the definitions, there's some clarity around impact at the school setting. So if it happens off school site, cyberbullying, for example, yet somehow spills over onto the campus, it becomes part of the purview of the school district. If it was to happen potentially over the summer, there was no impact on the school site, doesn't spill over, then it doesn't apply at that point in time. So there are some limitations, but that's traditionally with cyberbullying. But again, it can happen during summer when it's not in session and nothing continues on during the school year. That would not be part of something that the school would be involved in necessarily. So it's a case-by-case situation because there has to be an impact on the student. So obviously during school, it's a much easier time, but there have been times, whether over break, over summer, whatever it might be, that it does spill over, and then you would have that. Yeah.
What about if it's just after school or on a weekend? Not over a big break?
Again, after school, if it pertains and it connects back to school, and there is an impact or a ripple that then impacts the student that, say, Monday or the very next day, and that student's feeling unsafe on campus, whatever it might be, and it's continuing to put that student in that role, yes, then we would address it. So it falls under our, jurisdiction at that point. But that's more or less spelled out in the AR, and again, it's case-by-case basis. We have to pull the students in, investigate, and determine what's happening on school grounds, but also, again, more importantly, what is the victim, what's happening to the victim at that school site at that particular time.
So you don't think it would be helpful to put anything else in here about
the administrative regulation is very robust, and they've added, and I think the intent, honestly, was to move away from having every time there's a law change, as Dr. Kelly points out, there's a law change around this. They continually make that change. It's much easier to make the edits and updates the AR and make this more of a philosophical viewpoint that this is the way the board stands and direct staff to make sure that we're addressing it appropriately. So.
But I know we don't always see the AR, the administrative regulations.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide those if you wish to see them on these. And again, they come from Gamut. Traditionally, we do tailor them according sometimes to what our practice might be. But these are very spelled out specifically in these ones because of all the laws around them. So we're happy to share those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Attending, especially the equity class and the safe, supportive schools, was that we changed the title to anti-bullying instead of bullying. That was one of their suggestions. It's just that simple change. And then another suggestion, which if we have consensus, maybe they could wordsmith it and it comes back in the second reading. But because students learn by example, school administrators, faculty, staff, and volunteers should be expected to demonstrate appropriate behavior, treat others with civility and respect, and refuse to tolerate bullying and harassment. And so that was one of their suggestions, specifically to our policy, that is something we could add in, because it really calls in volunteers and parents and how they treat the children as well. The rest of it's really covered within our anti-harassment and our bullying policy, or anti-bullying, hopefully, policy. It's really the language around, because administrators, faculty, and staff are covered, it's really the language around volunteers.
And
So
you would plop in that, what you just stated, second paragraph?
Do we have that in a policy somewhere else? Lisa, would you know?
I went through and looked for it, and I can.
Anything to do with volunteers or?
We wouldn't put it here.
You want, because this is a students one.
This is students.
Oh,
That's what, okay. Thank you for the reminder. You know what, we went over that, okay. Oh, so sorry.
Lost my train of thought. I think also we have the civility policy, so that deals with parents as well in terms of if that's what you're and volunteers. We have them sign the volunteer packet, and we can dismiss them if they, if that were to happen. But I'm not sure where you're reading from. So is that something that? Oh, okay.
It's just from the conference. And I looked through, but I was looking through the student policies and the employee policies. I didn't think about, going to the public policies to look at that. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Okay, so just anti-bullying instead of bullying.
I'm fine with anti-bullying as the header.
Lisa, our civility policy is pretty all-encompassing. It's also would be staff.
Yes, it applies to anyone on a school campus.
Just wondering then, with that comment on the employees, the last sentence in the blue, if there should be any reference there to what section that would be found. So if someone came across this policy that we,
We could probably put a cross-reference to the uniform complaint.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion? Student vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Board members, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll bring back as a second reading with the requested changes. The next is safety, 5142. It's also a student policy. And this is another one that you earmarked, Member Perry. Public comment on this, on the safety policy for students? Motion, please?
So moved. Second?
Discussion?
What I was looking at here is I thought perhaps there should be a provision about our SROs as part of the safety.
Such as?
Did you have a spot for a sentence or something?
I didn't have a specific sentence, but I think it's definitely part of our safety for students here. And I think it would help to have that in there as a provision.
We do have crossing guards, so it does make sense.
Yeah, I saw the crossing guards, and that's what made me think of SROs.
Let's put this in above.
Yeah.
Oh, emplacement.
No, above the little percent there.
Yeah, we'll look for some examples.
Anything else? Student vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Board members, all in favor of bringing this back as a second meeting? With that
Yes,
added?
with that added, yes.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Carries 5-0. And next is board policy under instruction, 6142.1, comprehensive health instruction. Is there public comment on this policy?
And I don't know if it's, I don't like the fact that it's kind of obvious, but the health education has standards that we're implementing as far as these different programs. I know this is, I believe this is based around the relatively controversial health. Sorry, I'm not speaking very clearly. I guess my bigger, so how is this instruction analyzed for its success? That the program that we've put in place is the right information, has all of the right pieces for our students. I mean, This is comprehensive health. Some of the things that you mentioned, I saw the LA Times article as well on adulting. And there are parts and pieces in there just related to health. So if we're going to put in a comprehensive health instruction bylaw, how is that assessed and how is it analyzed and how is it measured for its success?
Ready? There we go. The language that's being added is not the whole policy that's already been done. That was done by the board on September 25th of 18. All that was added was our requirement for human trafficking. So that's what this is referencing. So, I mean, we could work with, staff can work with and respond to Ms. Morgan about kind of our process and procedures offline. But really the actual item here, it doesn't pertain to the question. It pertains specifically to human trafficking.
The question really is evaluating instruction. Correct. Right. Okay. Have a motion? Do you have any, was there any other public comment? Okay. Now, discussion.
Given that the new health curriculum may be a little problematic for some people, I was wondering if we could put in here that before we do our annual health survey and before we roll out the health curriculum, that we give public notice so the public can come and comment. So it's really open.
So is the question to add language that, the opt-out language?
Not the, I would like it.
Because we do send out a
something-
letter to the
right,
families
but something
before.
presented so parents actually know what will be presented.
The letter that we send out explains, are you talking about curriculum adoption, I guess, or the adoption of curriculum, or when students are being taught health, the letter that goes out?
I'm talking
For the
about
opt-out.
the health, both the health curriculum and the health survey that we do.
Parents have the right to opt out of any of those units.
Right.
And they're
but-
given a letter to alert them to not only they can come see the full content, but then they can pick and choose, at least as a unit, because I actually went to a session on that at the conference, to opt out.
But I'm saying that I think it would be helpful to have this on the agenda at a board meeting so people could come and really hear about it before they opt in or opt out and make comments. So it's really open to the public and parents.
Sorry. It's instruction, and the curriculum was adopted, 2 years ago in the state of California? Framework, it's a framework, yeah. So, I'm not sure I understand what you want in the policy. That's what I'm not sure I get.
I want parents to be able, or community members to be able to come and look at the curriculum, what's going to be taught in kindergarten, what's going to be taught in 5th grade, and make comments and decide if they want to opt in or not just a letter.
But that, in my opinion, at least in the readings I've done and the conference training, that's not a board meeting job. That's a parent with a teacher on instruction or coming to the district office and opting out. That's not, a parent can't come here and say, I'm opting out, and we can't do that. We're not administrators. So that's what I'm talking to her just a minute. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on what you want, because I'm not sure I'm completely understanding it.
Okay, maybe I'm not clear. I'd like a health presentation as part of a board meeting. A health curriculum presentation as part of, right.
So that's at the end of the meeting, you'd ask for that?
I don't think that has to do with this policy. That's
And there, I believe that all of this cannot be opted out of. There are certain.
You can opt out of the health, you just can't opt out of some of the California Healthy Youth Act, which is
Right.
historical so on and so forth. You can't opt out of those pieces. That's not part of the framework even, so, of the health framework. So I think I understand the question, so let me rephrase it.
Okay,
So I think we're on track. So just like we do when we bring forward curriculum, right, when we have textbooks available, right? So right now we're in the pilot phase of our curriculums, but when we come for full adoption, we will follow our traditional process. We will have parents involved at the curriculum council level, and we will also, as we usually always do by law, we will have our curriculum available for review. And at that time, it will come to the board for approval because you as an entity need to approve that material. So we're not there yet. We simply have piloted curriculum. We don't teach health below grade 7. So it is a structured curriculum. So it's just going to be curriculum that will be brought forward for those grades. And again, there's the framework that was dealt with. The standards have been in existence for many, 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 many years. The framework is just the most recent. That is not a guide. That is not a curriculum. It is simply, here's how you could potentially, and it has a lot of pieces to it. Our focus, obviously, when we passed this in 2018 was, here's what we focus on, and here's how you can opt out. But to your point, we will definitely be bringing it forward. It's been a topic of conversation we've had. It's been on our cabinet agendas regularly as we get closer and when we do. We understand that this is a topic that people want to have a time to review. And we have provided that as an opportunity for parents who've asked to review, and we always oblige and show them the curriculum and explain that if they're interested. And again, that's codified in here as well, that parents can opt their children out of the health side of this.
So there will be a discussion,
Yes.
not just come and look at the books yourself.
We will present it as typically we do, but we
Okay,
will.
great.
This one obviously has a little bit more interest
Right.
typically to it, so we'll make sure that we go and do our due diligence.
Okay, great.
Good answer.
Any further discussion on this policy on comprehensive health instruction? Okay, then student vote.
Yes.
Board members, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Okay, now we approved F, G, H, I, J, and K. So we move to L, which is closed session, bylaw number 9321. Is public comment on this board bylaw? 9321, closed session. Motion, please?
Second?
Discussion.
So, I know sometimes we put the references in, sometimes we take them out, sometimes we restate the government code, sometimes we restate California code. It seems like we should leave in the reference in this case, the 54957.1. Fourth paragraph on 9321. Yeah, page 25. Page 25, yeah. Oh, yeah, I wrote over it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or could we put
And
that
these
back
aren't,
in?
these are your bylaws, so they're not questions for staff. So they're,
Can we put this back in?
She's gonna look up the government code just to make sure
Okay.
it hasn't changed.
Okay. Now,
Is that an accurate reference?
right, it is part of the Brown Act. So sometimes we put them in the body and sometimes we put them at the end.
Unless you use it where it hyperlinks, it's all connected on the website where you're going through. But since ours don't do that, we're putting them at the end versus within the policy to clean up and make it more philosophical, a story, versus the ones that are just very tactile, not tactile, tactical where you're just clicking through, right? So we had decided.
Okay, so
You
are
and
we
I were
gonna
on
be
the three of
consistent with
us were on
that?
the board
Yeah.
when we decided that we're gonna be more philosophical about it.
Mhm.
And so I think as we're going along, we're just making it more consistent. I think it's what
Okay.
the change was.
Okay, so we're gonna be consistent with that.
Yeah, consistent that we're putting in at the end.
Okay, okay. Some of the other. I know this is quite a long policy, and I think I have a personal interest in this policy, and I actually think all the board members and the superintendent does too. Because of pending litigation, I think we should table this. Well, I don't know that we should be changing it now.
This is a general policy for all the items that are allowed in closed session to comply with the law. I would be concerned if we kept an outdated policy on the books. Because this has a number of topics dealing with confidentiality, personnel, negotiations, student items, real estate transactions. I mean, it's comprehensive. It's not just on litigation.
Right, I'm just saying we should suspend it now, for right now.
The
not-
approval of the first reading.
First reading.
So it won't take into effect until we change to the second reading.
It can be changed at the next reading.
I'm fine with it moving forward for first reading.
Any other discussion?
No.
Then I'd ask for a vote on bringing this back as a second reading. Student vote?
Yes.
Board members, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Then we have, our next is Board Bylaw 9321.2, closed section. Are we deleting that one? Okay, that's, sorry. So that's moving forward for deletion. So that's, she also had that down at
Right.
number M. So that's, is there any public comment on the closed section action and reports as a deleted policy? 9321.1, closed session actions and reports.
In reference to 9321.1, there's a line in here that says, in accordance with law, board members shall not disclose confidential information received in a closed session unless the board authorizes the disclosure of that information. That's a pretty black and white statement, it seems, that not everybody has the same interpretation of information. I believe that's what the current litigation is over. One person's perspective on what is confidential and what's not. So I'm wondering if it makes sense, and I would probably have to agree with Member Perry, given the state of the board currently, if we were in a position to actually be authorizing who has the right to say who can seek counsel or not. Because it seems in this one, that there's a lot of restrictions in who can access information, and it's limited to the superintendent primarily, and the president, which means that everybody else needs to just follow along and follow in line. That's kind of what I imply from all of these, when it says only the president or only the superintendent.
I think what you're actually reading is the policy that we just moved to second reading. That sentence is on, I believe, on page 2225 5 at the bottom where it has, so that's why if things are incorporated in this policy that were in the one we're deleting, this is a more expansive policy. The one that we just
9321?
The one we just moved forward for a second reading, 9321. So the 9321.1 is the one that we came out of policy workshop to delete.
Okay. So it can't, so it's not, you can't reference both as, since they're kind of one's being removed, the contents of one and what's relevant to the other? That doesn't work that way? They're not kind of treated as a whole in the sense that they say the same, they're covering each other? Does that make sense? Like one is replacing the other, so is it not?
Right. When we delete a policy, it's,
I understand that one is replacing it, but my question, I guess, is that is this, okay. Is 9321 coming back? Is that what you guys decided?
9, yes. It's coming back as a second
Do
reading.
you have a date on when that's going to be coming back?
Generally, they follow at the next meeting.
And that date would be?
We don't know yet. We haven't determined those meeting dates yet.
Oh, that's coming up? Okay, I have comment on that one.
Okay. Did we get a motion?
So moved.
Second. And we have any discussion on this motion that we came out of policy workshop deleting?
Correct.
Right. So there is no discussion, okay? Student vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Board members, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now, N, 9322, agenda/meeting materials. Any public comment on this? No? Board, motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Okay, discussion.
I just want to make sure, did we delete that an item for the agenda had to be submitted 2 weeks before the scheduled date?
That's where it's struck in the second
Right,
to last
so
paragraph?
so it can be, can it be 1 week before? Can it be 2 days before? I mean, where?
I think with,
Where the discussion
72
ended
hours.
is that simply providing an agenda item 4 weeks in advance of an agenda does not predicate that it'll be on that agenda.
And
That
that
agenda placement is determined per policy between the superintendent and the board president as to where it would appropriately fall within, whether it's an info item, action item, whatever it might be. So that was what the discussion was, that the 2 weeks made it seem as though it would make it on that next agenda for sure if it was within the 2 week window, and there's no guarantee that that's the case.
Is there a guarantee that it will make it on the agenda if it's appropriate, like within 3 months or with any, within
No.
the year?
No.
2 years? No.
Well,
Somebody may want
it's-
it on and it's
by law, it has to be added to the agenda. There's no, it could be determined that it would be more appropriate to be considered during the budget time when we're conveying the budget. So then it would, if the request came in July, we would look at the next time we were having a discussion on first interim, then we could add the agenda at that point in time. So that's what the discussion really was around, was not, by not having a specific timeline attached to it, it does not, show that a person who's putting it in 2 weeks ahead is feeling guaranteed that it'll be on that very next agenda. It would be communicated that this would be appropriately placed at an agenda in the future, and this is the date that it would be. Again, that would not be just my call. Obviously, it would be in conjunction with the board president during agenda prep. So,
Could we specify the future?
I think it states that when it's, how does it state it? Well, it's under the subject matter jurisdiction. That's when it might not be, so.
The reason for not stating is similar to when the local scientists wanted to talk about pesticides and stuff, that the idea of when the contract was coming up made more sense.
Right.
Where if we had a date that might have fallen outside of that range, and what they wanted to do was come influence that contract. And so then coming to speak when the contract was coming up is what made sense.
Right.
So they waited their time, right? But if we said, oh, it had to appear in 3 months, then they would have come. If the contract wasn't coming for 6 months, it wouldn't make any sense.
Right,
that's the
I
point of it,
understand
is
that's important,
to
but I
align.
also just don't want something, if there's no ending date, that you could
But by
say
law-
it's in the future.
Well, no, that's not the intent of the law. By law, it goes on, but if someone is wanting to make, influence or change a policy or change the direction of the district, or whether it's significant or something small, they want to do something. So they're reaching out because they want to do something, not because they want to mock something.
Right.
Right? So
Right.
then they're gonna work with everyone to find out when that's best. That's the whole point of the law. They can file a uniform complaint if they like, or they can file a complaint with the district attorney around the Brown Act. They can do other things if it's not appearing on there. But people, when they come to do something, put something on, it's because they want to make a difference.
Right, and
So-
so could it be within 6 months or something? I mean, they're all fired up about, making some change or doing something.
They'd be having a
and-
conversation long before 6 months with either the superintendent or the president about what the item is. And then they would assess when it fits best. But putting a time frame doesn't benefit them, is what I'm saying.
It benefits them that it will happen at some point in the near future.
Okay, well, you're
not-
getting into some issues that,
But that
because
would've been
part of
with
the
the legal
policy
counsel.
also says the determination if it's an item that would just be a request for information, as opposed to an item that would come forward as an agenda item. So that might make someone dissatisfied also, because they would feel that they want something, having a hearing as an agenda item, where actually it's just information that they're requesting. So there are several other variables in there that could be a decision not to have something become an agenda item, that are in the policy if you go to the next page. So, I don't know, if someone makes a submission, you need to go through all those categories to make a promise of when it would occur, then that you might not be able to uphold that. If the decision was, say, it was just a request for information.
To me, the policy says there's a fair evaluation of the subject matter to see where it fits into the board information, weekly update, agenda. And to me, we're obligated to then review that content and put it in the right place. And I would trust I would trust people to review it and make it fit in the right place for the goal of the district. That's how I think it's suitable as it's written.
I think the one thing I'd caution is that if the item does not belong on the agenda and you put in there that the item will be added to an agenda within 6 months, then, and it's not within the purview of the board, and we don't add it, then we're in violation of what you've written. So I think it doesn't preclude somebody from coming to a board meeting when it's not on the agenda and speaking to state that I would, I haven't been given a timetable for when this might potentially be on the agenda. I mean, they can always come and speak to non-agenda items. But I would just, my word of caution on is setting a timeline is that if it doesn't fall within the purview of the board, you're basically saying that it will be added even though it potentially wouldn't fall in the purview for your review. So,
Ooh, I wouldn't say that. I would say if it was within the purview of the board, that it would be added within a year or something.
Yes.
Board members, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0 to come back as a second reading. Okay. Okay, this is the end of we have another agenda item later, but now we have our annual organizational meeting, and I turn this over to Dr. Gloria. Okay, public comment now? Public comment on the annual organization meeting. This is the entire annual organizational meeting, which will include election of officers, appointment of board reps to the committees, setting meeting dates, time, and place, and annual reminders. So if you have any comments on any of those areas of the organizational meeting, this is public comment on that.
Hi. Last one. One might be a question. The meeting times that are listed here, I'm assuming are these meetings here, correct? I'd like to request that they are reevaluated to assure that they are not at the same time as the city council meetings. I think that to help us create a community that has students that are knowledgeable and worldly, they should be able to attend one or the other, and it's impossible to do if you guys are hosting school board meetings the same night as city council meetings. So that would be something to look at. Secondly, in light of the history of the elections of the annual meeting and the restrictions on who can put things on the agenda and who has authorization to approve it and who doesn't, it would be very important to allow somebody who hasn't had that role to be the president this year. So I don't know if it matters. I don't know if we can nominate anybody, but I would like to nominate Dee Perry on that one. And then the last comment that I have as far as notice on these agendas and meetings, there used to be a time where the district would do a call out to let people know about the board meetings. And and the fact that we don't have live streaming, it's been a year since live streaming has been down. And what's interesting to me is that there was such a concern that we were out of compliance with closed captioning. I can't imagine what we're doing right now if we don't have any type of video at the concurrent time of the meeting. So previous administrations would call the community to let them know that there was a board meeting, which essentially is an invitation, not just posting a piece of paper on the district office and the one other minimal place that you have to put it, which is the website. There was a concerted effort to make sure the entire community knew that they were welcome here, that their opinions were welcome here, and that regardless of whether they agreed or not, there was no retaliation. There was no insults thrown or anything else. One of the things you need to realize is that the tone that you get from the community sometimes follows the tone that you're setting. And if you're not listening to your constituents, you're not taking into consideration what they have to say, you're not making the meetings available for them, and you're basically saying, you know, if you don't want to sit here all night, then don't come, which is why you don't have the audio or the video going yet. You're not making these meetings a welcoming place. So I would highly recommend you reevaluate a lot of this to make sure that 2020, you make yourselves more available in the public setting rather than cut out as many opportunities for the public to come and speak to you. Thank you very much.
Did you get the email I sent you? I sent you an email based on the question you asked about what's been the holdup with the live streaming. And so you did not receive that. You did receive that. Okay. And would you note that these meeting dates all show on now Wednesday, Thursday? And just as a point of clarification, that for many, many years, the city and the school district had a mutual cooperation that we met on different Tuesdays. And due to the city's change, that we are attempting to accommodate the people that want to come to our meeting, that it doesn't conflict. So that is the reason that these other dates are in here. Just a clarification on that. Any other comment, public comment on the organizational meeting? Okay, now I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Gloria.
Education Code Section 35143 requires the governing board of each school district to hold an annual organizational meeting and election within a prescribed 15-day period. For 2019, the 15-day period is from December 6th through December 20th. Laguna Beach Unified School District Board Bylaw 9100 also specifies that the board shall hold an annual and organizational meeting and elected slate of officers. I will conduct nominations and election of the board president. So I call for nominations for the position of president of the Board of Education.
I nominate Mrs. Perry. No, Mrs. Wolf, sorry. I was just looking at you.
I nominate Board Member Normandin. She's been the clerk and done a great job, and it goes along with the sequence.
Do I have a second? Any other motions? I have a motion and a second. Any more motions? No? Okay, motion and a second. All in favor of Ms. Wolf being president?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, carries 401. We can. Mr. Fink? Sorry about that.
Okay.
I'm going to call for the nomination for the position of clerk for the Board of Education. Mrs. Normandin is presently the clerk and has served during 2019.
I nominate Board Member Kelly.
I decline. I get too caught up in the operations. Having done my whole career in operations, I need a little bit more time to be as focused as Mrs. Wolf on policy.
I nominate Carol Normandin.
Second.
Any other nominations? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, aye, myself, sorry. Student vote? Thanks, Drew, sorry. So the next one is the appointment of a secretary, which is automatically per Board Bylaw 9100. The secretary to the Board of Education shall be appointed at the annual organizational meeting, and Board Bylaw 9006 designates the superintendent as the secretary to the board. So we don't do anything on that? Okay. We don't. We're on number D on the organizational meeting. District representative for the Orange County Nominating Committee and Orange County School Boards Association. There's one representative and one alternate. Presently, the representatives are myself and alternate Dr. Jim Kelly, and I would like to remove myself from this role if someone else is interested. Do we nominate these or just appoint?
We've done it in discussion.
Just volunteer?
Yeah.
Dee, you're always interested in this position because you know a lot of the people, and I know you're interested. Would you be interested in doing it?
No, thanks.
Okay. Would you be interested?
If I can help in any way.
Jan or Jan?
No, 'cause it's evenings now.
Okay.
The daytime works
How about you and I trade, and you be the lead person, and I'll be the alternate?
Be great.
Okay. Victoria, did you get that? The Laguna Beach, number 2, the Laguna Beach Council of PTAs. We need one representative and one alternate. The representative has been Board Member Vickers, and I've been the alternate, although I've never been needed because Board Member Vickers is very reliable. Would you like to maintain that? Is somebody else interested? How do we? Okay. Those are morning meetings.
Would you like to do that, Toby?
I would not because of my work, yeah.
Okay.
I be the alternate then,
Oh, yeah.
even though I probably won't ever use it.
They're really great to go to, and it's really informative
Yeah,
as
I
a
don't-
proud member of PTA for many years. Okay, so we've got the representative will be Board Member Vickers, and Board Member Normandin will be the alternate. And then we have the Laguna Beach Education Foundation School Power. We have one representative and one alternate. I'm presently the representative, and Board Member Perry is the alternate. I can still I manage this one if you would like to do the alternate.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Never needed me.
Unless anybody else would like to do school power.
That's the evening one.
It's an evening, yeah. Okay. Okay, so that will maintain the same. Laguna Beach Education Foundation School Power Endowment is one representative and one alternate. That's number 4 on the appointments. Presently, it's Board Member Perry, and alternate is Dr. Kelly. Would you like to maintain this one?
Sure.
Okay. Is it something you enjoy, and you're okay with alternate? Anybody else? Jan? No? Fine, okay. So we'll maintain those. The Community Coalition, number 5, has one representative and one alternate. Presently, it's Board Member Normandin, and Board Member Perry is the alternate. Did you want to maintain that?
Yes.
You-
If everybody, if
you
someone else
enjoy
wants
it.
though, I enjoy it, but someone else
Does
wants it.
anybody else want it, or you're okay as alternate,
once every
Board
other
Member
month.
Perry?
Sure.
Okay. We'll maintain that.
Sure.
College, CCA, we appointed already at the November 12th, 2019 board meeting. Board Member Vickers and Board Member Perry were appointed representatives, and Board Member Wolf will be the alternate. You're going to help me along here? Now I go to the meetings? Okay. So we are on letter E, setting meeting dates, time and place for 2020. We're looking at 2 potential calendars, Wednesday evenings and Thursday evenings. Neither of these proposed calendars conflict with the city council Because what we did in our analysis is that in some months, in August, they had a meeting every Tuesday. So there was no way we could configure a Tuesday night meeting and not possibly have a conflict. So we've decided to look at Wednesday and Thursdays. We have business meetings and study sessions blended in. I thank you to the staff for putting this out because it was really nice to go through the year. And then we can give families advance notice for attending the meetings. Is this a motion, Dr. Valoria? Okay, so do I need a motion before we have discussion? Okay. Okay. Okay, discussion?
Because we planned our Tuesday meetings a long, long time ago, I have something really important on Wednesday, January 15th, that I really need to be there. It would be very hard to not be there at this time. So I would request that the January meeting either be on Tuesday, because the following meeting's on a Tuesday, or Thursday. And then after that, I don't, I'll make it work.
Do you have a preference for the Wednesday or Thursday, besides that one particular date you have an issue with? Do you have a preference for one of these?
I think my preference is probably Thursday, but I can go either way.
Okay. Dr. Kelly, do you have?
I think it's nice that we're changing the schedule. I don't think the city council is going to take into mind with everything that's going on, respecting what we do. I'd rather us just stay the way that we were, but I'm happy to consider either of these for the betterment of the world. And I can do either of them. I'm going to miss the same number. Since I made my calendar a year ago, I'm going to miss the same number either way you go.
I have a preference for Wednesday over Thursday. I'd miss 8 Thursdays.
Drew, do you have any input on Wednesday versus Thursday?
Well, I think I remember talking to someone and discussing that one of the reasons why our board switched to Tuesday meetings is because there were some issues with Thursday meetings. I don't know who I had that conversation with, but I mean, I'm not sure if that's correct. I mean, if that is, I would want to move it to Wednesday to kind of prevent the issues that were happening on Thursday, which caused us to change.
The reason for the change was we had very, very lengthy meetings. So by moving them to Tuesday, we could adjourn the meeting, say at 11 o'clock, and then reconvene on Thursday and finish the meeting.
Yeah, so with that said, I think
So it was really, that issue doesn't occur anymore. We don't have meetings that last that long.
Good.
And I would like to know if there's any agenda prep, any kind of preference that one of these has over the other.
Obviously, staff will adjust accordingly, whatever the interest of the board. There is some advantages to Thursday, allowing us to provide the board in advance for the weekend an opportunity to review the agenda on Friday afternoon, and then we could technically make any edits that we might need to make on Monday and post Monday, giving us that opportunity to get it posted within the guidelines. Again, we are more than capable of adjusting to Wednesday meetings as well. The board will still, as we stated in the previously, we will make sure the board has their agendas Friday, regardless of what day you pick, Wednesday or Thursday. So.
Would that be consistent year in and year out, Carol? I mean, hopefully if we make this change, that it would be a change that would last for many years. So you always would have that same conflict, or does it move around?
No, I think it's more tied to the weekend and the weekend travel. So
To weekend travel affects Thursday more than Wednesday.
Yes. And I think
It's not the weekend, you know that.
I know. I meant like, but ties in too. I said ties in too. Oh no, I do not want to travel with my students. Just joking.
I'm fine with either one, but I don't. We do need to set it and then stick with it. So I agree.
Well, and if we did the doing that Tuesday, like Dee had asked, but we wouldn't continue to do that on the Tuesdays though, right, going forward? We would, That's what I mean too, that would, just this, and then hopefully go to Wednesdays. Well, I guess we'd always have the Tuesday with the joint meeting with the city. Right.
Maybe we should adopt it and then send our days that we cannot be here to Victoria to see if there are two days. Would that work? Yeah.
Oh, for the advanced
Yeah.
conflicts
Yeah.
to alternate.
Oh, to do Thursdays and then do advance?
Jan, do you have a strong feeling of either one, Wednesday or Thursday? You haven't really said. Just wondering. I lean towards Thursday
Lean
because I
toward
like.
Thursday, but
Yeah.
I'm reluctant to change at all because
Yeah, yeah. But I wonder with student, thank you. I wonder with student, like plays opening and other things, I guess you'd still have rehearsal in Tech Week, right? So it still affects you. But I was thinking Thursdays when it, right?
Yeah, well, Thursday is typically the staff preview
Yeah.
for one of our shows, but I mean, I'm not sure about the specific dates, but I'd have to check to see.
I just, thinking about Thursdays too, that was just my thought on Thursday, was that you guys, most of you are in drama that are here, right? And so they would just have a conflict.
Well, I know Chloe's not, so I mean, if there
Oh,
is
no,
a
I meant
conflict.
one or the other can come. I meant in past.
When we set this schedule, I did, with Jason, looked at the dates you guys originally provided me when I sent out a request for availability. I did not go back out again, but I did use the schedule that you guys provided me.
was that for Tuesday or?
It was, but, well, yours didn't matter a whole lot. But, yeah.
Do you have any flexibility not missing those Thursdays if we adopt a Thursday?
Four of them right now, but that'd be fine.
Until we get a consensus on which one. I don't have strong feelings either way, but I also think that if staff can make adjustments, Thursday seems like it's more advantageous to get the agenda on Friday. We can read it over the weekend. This is what Dr. Flory presented. And then if there were edits or something, so it would be a really kind of finite product on Monday presented to the public for the Thursday meeting. I like that process. I think it's thorough and thoughtful. That's why I kind of lean towards Thursday.
But even if it was Wednesday, we would still have it on Friday? You would just post it on Friday, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we would post Friday.
So the public would also have the advantage of that?
Yeah, it'd be like current. Tuesday, Wednesday is going to be like current practice.
Right.
If we were to Thursday, it would give us time. We could post it on Monday. We could post it on Friday if we were done, but we want to potentially give board time to give us feedback if there's things that are missing or questions you might have. Some of you are very good at reading the little fine print and finding, those little things that are off, and we want to make sure that if for some reason we miss something, obviously it gives us some time. However, again, we're fine either way. We're not, it works for us, whatever it is, the interest of the board. So we just want to make sure that the majority of those that can attend, which is what I think Dr. Kelly is referencing. So, yes, yep.
Do we want to do consensus with Thursday? Your big conflict with, just so I confirm, is Wednesday, January 15th. Okay.
With that.
Okay.
I love the idea of us being able to see it ahead of time.
Okay. I'm sorry about your.
No,
Okay.
and if it ends up being days that we're both gone, then we'll just look at those days for another day, right?
Okay.
We would then pick another day, yeah. And we have enough time.
Okay.
To do that.
Okay, to
Yeah.
do a year in advance, okay.
Yeah.
And then we did a motion on just the meetings. Do we now do a separate motion on the Thursday schedule? Okay.
Second.
Okay.
As amended.
So we're gonna do the Thursday schedule we're voting on. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, Drew, sorry. Student vote?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, motion passes 5-0. So the next thing on the list is the annual reminders. Am I to read these aloud? Is that, okay?
Yep.
Thanks, Jan. Annual reminders, Aliso property option reminder. The Board of Education is reminded that the district has the opportunity to purchase the Aliso school property in the year 2041 for $1. This special note is to remain a part of all annual organizational meetings until, the dollar, thank you. At all annual organizational meetings until said purchase option is exercised or expires. A $1 bill is on file in the business office as a reminder to future boards of education. This dollar bill may be used to exercise that option in 2041. The First Amendment to the option to repurchase, effective December 11th, 2012, enabled the district to establish a trust account that holds the deed to the property pursuant to any default by the current property owner. The district may record the deed by satisfying the existing loan upon any future default by the current owner. And our second annual reminder is resolution number 01-02, Facilities Repair and Replacement Program. The Board of Education is reminded that by adoption of resolution number 01-02 on February 27th, 2001, the intention and desire was to continue this program to ensure future repair and replacement of the district's facilities. That's the end of the organizational meeting portion. And now we're at agenda item 24, board member requests for items for future meetings and board member requests for information. Dr. Kelly?
But now I'm on to nursing. That when I did the walkthrough with the superintendent, I was just amazed at the number of kids that were sick at the time that I was there. And it did not look to me like the staffing was what it should be. We have a big amount of flu coming our way, and I would like us to look at what our staffing is for our health centers on these campuses.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. I forgot to do public comment. I'm learning. Any public comment on board member requests, item 24?
I wanted to thank you for the time that you've given everybody this evening. Member Vickers, I want to thank you for your email, and I apologize if my pointing out of the member meetings, as I pointed to the sheet that said Wednesday and Thursday, it didn't actually resonate that you were moving the meetings to Wednesday and Thursday, because like the kids with finals, there's a lot going on. So thank you very much.
Did you have anything else?
No.
Okay. Board Member Perry?
Yeah, I was looking at our legal fees, and I saw that they have gone up significantly, and part of it's just fees go up. In 2014-15, they were about $92,000. Then 2017-18, $290,000. I would like to, for all of us to have access to know who's making legal requests and what they're for. For instance, is it just Dr. Valoria and or President Vickers, which will be Board President Wolf, or are lots of other people making requests?
I'm not sure how we report on this. Is that an information item, or is that because it's attorneys and those types of things might be privileged information?
In the role that you have,
Yes.
I have communication from Member Perry that the information that she received with her previous request on the amounts for the last 4 years, which has expanded to 7 years, I believe, on the contracts that we have, the total amount, which all those were approved unanimously, that came before us, and/or during the budget process, and all the totals spent for all those years. But what she is feeling is that she needs detailed information, and there would need to be a majority of the board that felt that. We don't ordinarily get that. There would be significant redaction because of confidentiality issues, but also it's not the level that we normally get involved in. The other part of that is a procedural question, which could be an information item as to when there is need for legal information, when is the decision made,
what's the threshold where you get a legal opinion? What drives that? Who among all of our staff have that ability to make that decision? What's like the chain of command? So that could be, that's what I suggested, pardon me? But that would be like in an update, that would be.
I support that information. Yeah, I would support the chain of command.
Because I couldn't answer that without having more information.
Yeah.
I like there being more of a procedure to it. This was brought to my attention by several people that thought we were overusing our legal department, and I heard about it at CSBA too. So I thought we should, or someone should, at least take a look at it if we're being responsible for our budget.
And I attended a conference at CSBA on legal fees and legal cases and how education has a large burden in many areas dealing with legal issues in the state of California. So yeah, we're not alone. This is an issue all over. I'm okay with just that process that Board Member Vickers mentioned, just that information. Anybody else?
That's the process, yes. I would
So
agree with
would
that,
you
but not the detail.
Not the details of who requested things like that, but just what
The chain of command is
the chain of
process.
command is.
And that's including and we did pass a bylaw in March about how we use attorneys as the board, right? That's in there. Bylaw 9124, right, which talks about how we as a board access attorneys or, okay, so would you just make a statement to that as well, just so that it's clear? Is that okay, if you just, because it talks about making the decision
Yes.
for attorney. I think it's really important that we're just include it.
Sure.
Anything else, Board Member Gray? I have nothing. I'll go to Board Member Normandin.
You have to pass a resolution.
Resolution, okay.
To then, that resolution would allow us to go to the County Register of Voters to then have it added as a ballot measure for consideration in the local voters.
Okay.
So it would be a resolution first. So I can provide a copy of a sample resolution to the board if that's of interest, just so you can preview and understand what it looks like. I outlined the process in a November weekly update. I can resend that as well as a copy of the resolution, and then bring it back as an information item if that's interest, to then bring it forward as an action. I think it's a pretty important conversation, and one of the things that we've always talked about is bringing things as an info then action. So I think if that's if you're okay with that, I can send that out to you in a weekly, and then we can have it added to as an info item for discussion in January. And then from there, the next steps. Obviously, I think it would, we would have to make sure timelines are met, but I believe that if it was acted on early, if the intent was to get it on the ballot by November, I'd have to make sure, but I believe you would. You wouldn't be able to make, obviously, the March ballot, but
Okay.
you'd be able to make the November, I would expect. So.
I'm fine with the information, that you provide. Anybody else with information?
There will be
on-
costs, yes.
Okay.
Well, I don't know that we'd have the exact, but we can potentially
Approximate.
give you a rough idea.
Okay. Board Member Vickers? Our next regular meeting on this says TBD, but it's now Thursday, January 16th will be our next regular business meeting. And please note that we do already have a joint meeting with the City of Laguna Beach scheduled for Tuesday, January 28th, so it is a little bit out of sync, but it's already been scheduled. Oh, yes. We'd like to thank you for your service as president.
You're welcome.
Would anybody else like to say? Yeah.
Board Member Vickers is also serving as president of CCA.
Bravo.
It was very cute. They had articles of her from 1980 when she first came there still, and
Wow.
a big scrapbook.
How do I close out the meeting, Jan? You can give it just meeting adjourned, clunk?
Oh, we need a
Okay,
motion.
oh, I need motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? Oh, student vote?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.